Hey guys, Thetcglover here. How are we doing today? Oh, it's been so long. I know, it's been really long. My last video was at the end of October, and honestly, I have complete justification for that, and it's not that I've been ignoring you. I've been reading comments, watching videos, trying to keep up with the game to some extent, but I can't keep up as much as I used to because it is a full-time job on a competitive level. It really does take a lot of time out of you, and I can't balance that with a job. I can't balance that with projects that I need to do. But I'm not a kid anymore. I've got stuff to do, and I think you can all understand that. I still want to keep part of the game, and I still want to talk about the game, and I still want to enjoy the game the way that I do, you know, making videos and stuff like that. And I think it's really great that I can connect with people at a much different level than most people can just by talking on something like Facebook. So I still want to make videos, and I'm so sorry for the people who have been PMing me going, oh, make more content, Thetcglover, oh my god. And it's like, I can't make loads of videos. I had to take this huge break because I was at a full-time job and I just left it, and now I can make a few more videos, but I really wish I could make more, but I just can't. And I think people like Jamie the Kid 00 and other YouTubers as well, they were suffering the same problem where it came to the point where you think, is it really worth doing this? And then it's like, yes, I do want to do this still, but I don't want to do it as consistent and as much as I was before. It's been a year and a half since the Pendulum Mechanic came out. It's been a very interesting year and a half, I have to say. Of course, it's been a little bit longer in UCG, but I'm talking TCG mainly because of my name. So anyway, I found this thread on Reddit, and I go on Reddit a lot on Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I think their opinions are quite unbiased. I think if you go on Pojo, a lot of people get really hooked up on certain aspects, and I think if you go on something like Zodiac or you go on UDY, you get to see all these people getting really anal about certain shit, and it doesn't really matter. But I think on Reddit you get a few people in there that speak gospel, right? They actually do give a proper explanation for things. Duelist Grounds is not a good place to learn about Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. Everyone's a freaking circle jerk in there, so they need to do that stuff. But I think with Reddit, I think it gives a good opinion about a lot of different things. So I just want to have a quick talk about the Pendulum Mechanic in general, and I just want to say if asking if people are really happy with it now and what they think about the mechanic now than what they thought about it before it came out. So I think when people came out, people realized, and I was saying it as well, about how you could vomit onto the field and then you can return your vomit back into your extra deck, and then you still have your pendulum zones and you do it again. So obviously there's more emphasis on MST destruction now and more about disruption than there was before. The pendulum mechanic has definitely changed, and I think the core ideal of the pendulum mechanic, which was to vomit, bring back, and it was very volatile and it was very easy to disrupt, it's still in the backbone of the game. It's still a really important part of how you play this game, where you know that it's just as much importance for you to further your game state than it is for you to retract theirs. So you have to play two games at the same time here, rather than you just trying to destroy their monsters and attack. You can't do that anymore. You need to destroy the whole setup, and it's about dismantling them while improving your situation. So anyway, this guy was saying, you know, some people really do hate the pendulum mechanic, and it has gotten a really strong, it's much stronger than it used to be. Of course, it does utilize different other mechanics like synchros, pendulums, Xyz monsters, and a few things like that. And of course, some things like Pepe, they really kind of just went OP as shit, and now the deck is way too strong, and things like Cosmo, which is a really broken deck, is completely fallen off. And it's not completely fallen off, but it's fallen off enough where there's pretty much nothing to say about it anymore. A lot of people are still really optimistic about the new support that will come out for it. You know, there's not really much that can be said about it, because honestly, my opinion about the game right now is not as in-depth and insightful as it could be, but I still feel like the general idea about Pendulum as a mechanic and where the game is going is a universal topic that I think we can go on with. So anyway, glass cannon by design, iron cannon by testing. This was said by a guy called Mispin Prince, who has been regarded as one of the better members of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Reddit subreddit. So anyway, this is a really good point. Glass cannon by design, iron cannon by testing. I think that really encapsulates pendulums as a whole. The idea that you basically vomit and then your opponent stops you, and then you realize, oh, I've used up all of my resources, but then what if you can say that you can vomit, and then you can also replace the cards that you vomited, so that if they bring stuff back, you can basically +3 or +4 every turn, and that means that you can always have pendulum scales, which means you can always vomit. I mean, you can't vomit in real life and then eat the vomit and then vomit back. But Pepe is basically that. So now it's turned the mechanic into something that is not understandable anymore. A lot of people are trying to understand, okay, so I understand that it basically OTKs, I understand that it basically makes ridiculous pluses, but where's the weakness? Where's the bad part? You know? And honestly, a Pepe mirror match is where you're going to see the deck lose more likely. But if you actually pit it against other decks, it generally wins when it's piloted pretty well, because people understand that plussing that much every turn is not healthy. Glass cannon by design and cannon by testing basically means that it is a cannon, but it's definitely not a glass one. It's definitely not easily beaten. And that's not a good thing to say about pendulums. It should not have been that way, because it makes every other mechanic obsolete unless you use the pendulum mechanic to make those. Pendulum, in my opinion, is fine, but the stupid amount of searches Pepe gets from it, as in Trump Joker, Monkey Board in the scale, Joker in scale, search and exceeds, is not. It's the same as Necros, but Necros had the limitations of not being able to summon their bosses freely. They needed rituals. So that is very, very true. I mean, you could see that Necros was an incredibly strong deck, right? But you knew, just by looking at it for 2 seconds, you knew that its potential weaknesses. You know, you knew that you could stop it searching. You knew that you could stop the ritual mechanic. You could do a whole bunch of different things to stop rituals, right? So the whole mechanic of ritual summoning is very, you know, it can be disrupted. But I think the pendulums, because it's a mechanic in the way that it is, it's not like you're disrupting. You'd be having to disrupt a summoning condition as opposed to disrupting a card that summons something, which makes a whole different difference. You know, summon warning changes. A lot of other cards change. The mechanic is fine, but Konami made so many broken pendulum support cards and searches that it became stupid. Basically, what I think he's getting at with this is that where Konami noticed the weaknesses of pendulums, they created cards that will help the weakness, which is not what you should be doing. The weakness should always be there so that people can always feel like they have a constant grasp on the game, rather than trying to learn new stuff and realizing that, oh, actually they've now covered their bases and now pendulum is completely broken. So it's always about leaving a small gap of weakness for people to identify. But there isn't really much to do that with anymore, because now they've created Pepe and it pretty much just completely changes the pendulum mechanic by itself. I don't really like it at all. The way it's designed, the pendulum deck is either going to be completely terrible or completely broken with real no in between. Exactly. Because it's a cannon, right? If you change one little thing about the mechanic, every single archetype that revolves around pendulum summoning could pretty much be destroyed in one go. If you remove it so that if there was like Heavy Storm at 3, MST at 3, like a whole bunch of MST destruction, and then the whole game is just based around pendulums because they're so broken compared to the rest of the game, you're just going to see the whole game go to shit, because everyone's going to be so pissed that no one can do anything. It will be really awful. So it can be really terrible or really broken, and that's a really good point to say. The design flaw is definitely not in the mechanic, but in the monsters. Now, there we go. We got some differencing there, because I really feel like it's a bit of both. The mechanic enables the monsters to be what they are, but the monsters don't need to be as broken as they are, because they are, even if they weren't pendulum monsters on their own, they are still really, really broken. They still have broken effects, and I think that's just the way that the game has gone. Best thing to happen in the game since synchros, you can use pendulum summons to support all other types of summoning. So that's a really, really good point to make. It's about getting the older players or the more casual players into pendulum summoning without alienating them and thinking, vomiting is so unfair. Actually, if you can use your Yang Zings, or you can use your TGs or something like that, or you can use whatever synchro archetype you want, and you can actually now make your synchros faster, that just seems like a really cool thing to do. You know, and obviously they're still supporting synchros with things like Super Heavy Samurai, so that's really, really awesome. 7 out of 10 in theory, 0 out of 10 in implementation. That's a good point to make. So these comments go on. You know, I can actually link you to the actual page, and I think you guys can get involved in this, because it's a couple of days old now, but people are still commenting on it. I still think it's a really, really interesting topic, and I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on it down below, because I still want to get back into the game, but I think this is a really good way for me to break back in again, because I really like to see how the game has changed in the few months that I've gone. And of course, Pepe has completely changed the format, and I don't understand it as much as I would like to, but I would like to try and get back into it now. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you guys soon. I'm not going to say a few days, I'm going to say soon, because I hope soon. So anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, the Thetcglover is out.